Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's Morning Coffee with Mike. Hope you had a great weekend. We are going to get started talking about how to narrow the field for stocks and ETFs. This question came in during the Trading Mind Wheel virtual conference that we had unbelievably close to 2 weeks ago. Time flies, doesn't it? And we're still getting through so many of the questions that came in during the panel. It was a full 8 hour discussion. Thousands of people came and joined in live. Lots and lots of questions during that time. We weren't able to get to all of them, so we're doing our best to answer some of those questions for you here right now. And one of the questions had to do with how to narrow the field of stocks and ETFs. So when we dive into that question, there's a couple of different ways to attack it. And of course, the first way is going to be, well, what questions do we want to ask ourselves? Questions are the answer. So the better we're able to formulate the questions, the easier the answer will become. So question number one will be, what's our goal? What's our objective? Well, what are we trying to do with our with these stocks or these ETFs that we're going to trade? Are we attempting to hold them long term? Are we looking to day trade or swing trade? Well, what exactly are we going to do? That'll help us start to figure out, well, what types of systems we should be considering. After that, we want to start to think about, well, what's our time frames, right? Or well, what particular style do we like? Do we want to be a growth and momentum investor or trader? Do we want to be uh, do we want to look for value, right? Like a Warren Buffett kind of style? Well, what do we want? Once we have those questions figured out, and there's no right or wrong answer at that point, we're just trying to figure ourselves out. But once we figure out what's right for us, then we could start to dive into the field of how we can narrow the field of what it is that we're going to look at. Uh, I'll share with you what I do and why I do it. So, why don't we start by coming over here? I'll switch my screen around and start sharing the screen over here on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else. So, share screen, share the entire screen. Okay. So everybody should be looking at MarketSmith. MarketSmith is a tool that I like to use to screen for different stocks and for all the different criteria that I have. I'm a growth guy. I look for growth, I look for momentum, and the types of stocks that can bring growth and momentum are the types of stocks that have very strong earnings and sales and do that consistently quarter over quarter. So what I'll do is I'll come up, or first, let me say, what I'll do is I'll run each of these screens over here. Uh, you might see there's a screen over here for sector leaders. There's a screen for accelerating earnings and sales. There's a couple of IPO screens. I'm looking for, what I call super earnings growth and super sales growth, basically looking for earnings and sales that are growing and accelerating quarter over quarter. If you take a look at, let's see, well, what's one of the stocks that pass? Yeah, like this one right here, right? Super sales growth. You see how this one right here has sales that are up 200%, 139%, 175%. That's exceptionally strong sales growth. And so I'll run each of these scans, right? And so I'm running the same scans every single week. And what that does in running the same kinds of screens every single week, it gives me a much better feel for what the market environment is actually like right now. So, for example, if there's a lot of stocks that are passing my screens right now, then it's telling me that the market is starting to get stronger. If there's very few stocks passing my screens, then that tells me that maybe it's not such a great environment. Just one of the things that helping to narrow the field does. So Anyway, back to the original question of how to narrow the field and what I personally do to narrow the field. This is part of it. So I'll run these screens and I will take the stocks that pass these screens and I put them into a watch list that I call a universe watch list. And right now, there are 307 names on this watch list, right? So just tab through a few of them. We're looking at weekly charts here. So uh, AMD, Mobileye, PI. This is NVIDIA. Maybe you know about some of these names, maybe you don't. But what I'll do is I'll tab through all of these stocks on the universe list, and I'll tab through them about at the speed that we're going right now. And when a stock pops up that catches my eye, I will move that stock onto the weekly trade ideas list. And this trade ideas list, right? So I'll just bring that up. Trade ideas list. This weekly trade ideas list is the list that I share out in the weekly newsletter for free every Sunday. So if you were on uh, Sunday's email, this is what you got, or one of the things that you got. So KBH Homes, all these different stocks here. In fact, well, why don't I switch over to a daily time frame? You might be able to see the current movements a little bit better here. So the trade ideas takes everything from the universe list. Just switching the camera back around for a moment. So the trade ideas list takes everything that we saw in the universe list and it narrows the field down even more to just those stocks that are setting up. The reason why we want to have a universe watch list is because a we want to start off with just stocks that fit our criteria, whatever that criteria is going to be, well, whatever is going to help us meet our objective. I'm looking for growth and momentum. I want stocks that have the ability to move. I want stocks that have the ability to move a couple of hundred or even a couple of 1,000% in the span of a year or two. The stocks that have the ability to do that have historically been the ones that have incredible earnings and sales and are leaders in their respective industry groups, all those things. So I'm screening for that to build the universe list, right? So that narrows the field immediately from the 9.5 or 10,000 stocks that are out there down to 300, right? That's pretty good narrowing. But when we're going to actively trade stocks, we don't want to look at 300 either. We want to really narrow it down. So I'll go through my list of the 300 stocks, which are over here. I'll bring the screen back up again. Right, so I'll go through this whole list and then come up with the trade ideas for the week. The stocks that are consolidating for the week, like AMD starting to pull back over here. Novartis trading sideways. What's this? This is Booking Holdings trading sideways. So they're trading sideways, but they're not necessarily ready. Not all of them are necessarily ready to buy. Like this here was consolidating, gap down. So I'll take this trade ideas list, and this is the list that I send out in the newsletter. What I'll do with this list is I'll go through the entire list, right? So now this will be my third pass going through the list, and I want to find the stocks in it that are very close to breaking out or being ready, or that I like. So the stocks that fit that criteria. Let's see. Did I move the names over? Actually, no. I put them over here. I like to use a couple of different tools here. I'll move Trading View over. And so now I'll take all the annotations off so that way you could see the screens a little bit better. Yeah, so these are the stocks that were very close. In fact, IoT is one that I had that I actually just bought. It should have triggered this morning. So I saw this consolidation here, very close to being a high tight flag. Uh, Actually treated it as a VCP, and it broke out above $20.28. Looks like it nearly hit my first scale out already, well, which is great. We'll see what it does the rest of the day. But this was one of the top stocks on my list, so I ended up buying this one. When there's other names on the list, you want to go through all of them and grade them. And that's going to help you to see, well, which ones are the best of the best, which ones aren't. All these B-level trades, these ones I wouldn't touch. And the reason why is because there's some, like they're close, but there's some kind of flaw that I'm seeing in them. Even though I wouldn't buy them per se, they're still good to keep on a watch list. And the reason why they're good to keep on a watch list is for a few things. The first is that it's going to give us a sense of how the market is treating the types of consolidations that we're interested in. If the market is treating them all favorably, then great. Then that means that the conditions are becoming more ripe. If everything's getting smashed across the board, then that's telling us that, you know what, maybe it's time to sit and wait and not be involved. So, so I go through the whole list, right? We started off with 45. Uh, I get this got narrowed down to how many stocks are on this? 31. And then from that final list of 31, there was only one idea that I wanted to take this morning, which was this one here in IoT. So that is how I go about narrowing the field. And it seems like a lot of work. And to be honest with you, it is, especially at first. Uh, on the weekend, that whole process would probably take me about 90 minutes if I wasn't also doing a presentation and sharing it with our members and going through step by step and doing the analysis together. Takes a bit longer when you're doing a presentation, but just if I was doing this for myself, about 90 minutes altogether from start to finish, running the screens, um, culling out the trade ideas down to the focus list, down to any stocks that'll be actionable, and then placing the orders. And that's that's about it. So hopefully you found that helpful. Even if you don't trade in the same way that I do, you could still follow a similar process for yourself. Think about what you find to be important, and then find the stocks that meet that criteria, and then narrow the field down to whatever your A level setup is going to be, and then just trade those. Let's see what questions have come in. Let's open it up for questions. We've got about 5-10 minutes for questions here. Scroll through Instagram, see some flames and some 100s coming in. Thank you guys. I appreciate the support. Let's see what questions you have. Cup and handle. What is a cup and handle? Let's see if there's any cup with handles that came in from this weekend. But you know what? Instead of showing you the cup with or scrolling through this list, I'm going to bring up my weekly playbook. And this is another tool that I share with our members. So my personal journal spreadsheet here. There's a lot of different tabs. You might see some of the tabs down here on the bottom. I'll share it over here on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. So this goes out to everyone. The tab that I want to show you guys is the setups tab, right? So I've got the different setups that I'm interested in, and the question was about cup with handles. So this is the criteria that I look for in a cup with handle. And I want to make sure that all of this criteria is met before I'm going to take the trade. Like all this is filtered under the must-haves, so it has to have all these different things before I even look at it. Then I want it to have this criteria here in the boosters. The more boosters it has, the better. A few examples of some good cup with handles. Let's see, like this one here, right there. This one was in XPEL from what was the period? This was from 2020, right? This was one that I actually traded. And so this one pulled back towards the 50-day moving average, traced out the cup part here, made the handle. You could see the dry up in the handle area. We always want to see that, and we always want to see the handle either moving sideways like this or drifting down. This one actually did a little bit of both. It drifted down over here, and then it consolidated sideways and tightened up a bit more before breaking out. It also, if you notice this, that all the moving averages were coiled. They're all starting to turn up over here. And I like that a lot. And the reason why I like that so much, wow, there's a bunch of arrows on YouTube over here. Hopefully that's not getting too annoying. I apologize if it is. But one of the things that I like about over here, when you start to get a lot of support or a lot of confluence around a support area, is that if it breaks below that low, right, right down here, then that tells me that okay, there's a very strong chance that this trade is wrong and I want to be out of it. The more confluences there are, the better it makes the floor that we're looking at nice and firm. So this breaks out and goes and it behaves exactly how we want. But there's other things on this chart that are great too, like the relative strength line being moving ahead of the price action. The stochastics up here already being turned up ahead of the breakout. I like to see that. It's a sign of momentum, something that I've picked up through the years. And that's a few things there. Let's see, what other questions came in? Scroll through this a bit more. You guys over there on YouTube and Instagram, type your questions into YouTube. Oh, what am I saying? LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Get your questions in. Just gonna scroll down through Instagram. Instagram is pretty busy in here, so if you type the question in, type it again so that way I see it and it comes to the top of the feed down here. Okay, so let's see. Well, what other things can I tell you about here? We spoke about cup with handles. We spoke about model books. Model books are important. When you have a setup and your setups are something, it's a concept that I mentioned, of course, in the Trading Mind Wheel book. If you haven't gotten the book yet, go grab it. One of the important things that everybody needs for their setup, and everybody has a setup. Whether you think that you have a setup or you think that you don't have a setup, you've got a setup. The person that just gets a tip from somewhere and decides to trade that, that's that person's setup, right? Whatever causes you to take action is your setup. So whether you think that you have a setup, you've got a setup. Let's make our setups great. So how can we make our setups great? We could make our setups great by making them nice and clear, by having model books. So when you figure out what your setup is going to be, find the best examples of that setup, and then the next time that you go and you want to trade that particular setup, you could compare what you're looking at to the model and have several models, right? You don't want to have just one. Have at least three, right? Like the 3 is a good number to start, but try to work your way up to 5 or 10. All right. If there's no other questions, we will wrap things up here. I want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll see you all here tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. And for any of you that wanted to join me live, I keep on getting requests mid-show to go live. If you want to go live, book the time ahead of time. Click the link in the bio, click the link in the description, and book a time. There's a Calendly link, and you'll be able to book a time anytime, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, and we'll be able to go live together. Till tomorrow, have a great rest of your day. Take care. Much love. Peace out, everybody.